Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything. On today's show, I actually tracked this woman down. I was on my social media and I kept watching her stuff. And I think one of the things that stood out was when there was a clip that she did, and she lip synced to Jay-Z. And he said it was let me reintroduce myself, and it was like she was hitting it. It had the hip hop kind of feel, which was incredible. But the biggest reason why I wanted to have her on the show is because we were talking earlier, and I was saying that there's so many people that will do something and they think that that's the only avenue that they have. And what I've seen with Elizabeth is that she's been able to transcend and be able to connect with a latent audience that sometimes she wouldn't be able to connect with in her regular profession. And so she's really been able to take the limits off and give us all the opportunity to be able to dream a little bit bigger. So I want to thank you for being on the show, and welcome, Elizabeth.
Absolutely, Kelly. Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you today.
Well, it's incredible. So it's the kinderheartedclassroom.com.
Yes.
But that's the, if you're looking for her on Instagram, you need to check this young lady out, because watching her on Instagram, she makes learning so much fun. Like, I wish that I had this teacher when I was growing up. I just think that it's so incredible. What gave you the idea? Because being a teacher and being a presence on social media with almost 100,000 followers, those two things don't mix.
Yeah.
Or so we thought. Help us with
Yeah.
this, Elizabeth.
Well, okay, so I actually started about 7 years ago with the kinderheartedclassroom.com, and I started by creating a lesson for some young learners in my classroom. And my friend looked at me and she's like, "Have you ever heard of this platform called Teachers Pay Teachers?" And I said, "No." And I said, she's like, "Well, you got to upload." It's like Etsy for teachers or Amazon for teachers, where teachers can go on and they can look through different lessons and purchase lessons. I said, "Okay, well, I'll upload this lesson and just see what happens." And this really is the foundation of my why. So, and I just encourage anybody listening, entrepreneur or not, knowing what your purpose in life is and understanding and having clarity on your why is so important. And so I uploaded this lesson, and within a week, I heard a little cha-ching on my phone. And it was the first time I'd ever heard a cha-ching, but I was like, okay, I'll go check it out. And so sure enough, I had sold my first $4 lesson. And I can't even tell you the feeling that I had. It was like, wow, somebody believes in it was $4. It only took me 60 hours to make the lesson, but it was my first $4 sale. And I was like, that is so cool. Well, it was a Jonah and the Whale Bible lesson. And within a week, I got a picture from a woman in Africa using this lesson on a dirt floor with a 5-year-old little boy. And I always get emotional when I tell this story, because that's my why. In that moment, I had this aha moment of, there really is potential for me to reach into classrooms and bless little lives and even give resources to teachers in a new way. And social media is it. And so that was the moment for me that was like, how do I get my message out there? The Kinderhearted Classroom is based off of my kindergarten teacher, whose name was Mrs. Kinderhart. And she had a wood shop in her classroom and all these hands-on activities. And I grew up super poor. I grew up with my single dad. We were homeless for 6 years. We lived in a teepee in Indiana. And I went to school hungry and tired. And when I went to Mrs. Kinderhart's classroom, I felt so loved and seen and heard and accepted. And anything you made in this wood shop, you'd be able to bring home. And so a lot of my toys were made from Mrs. Kinderhart's classroom, from this little wood shop. And so from a very young age, a lot of my is in edu speak, we call them, you got a Maslow before you bloom. Your Maslow needs, your physical, emotional, needs need to be met before you can bloom and really start learning in the classroom. And so anyways, that's the kind of the behind the scenes story of why I started here on Instagram. And so 7 years ago, that situation happened. I started my online platforms, and it's just been a crazy journey ever since.
So you were talking about the Maslow part of it. Can you go back into that too? Because I think it's a lot of times where, especially nowadays, the way that I was raised with my dad there was two guys. There was my dad, who most people don't know, and then Pops. And Pops was a very nice, gentle, loving guy. Dad was like, look, I'll cure you from not being able to pay attention. Boy, I'll just go upside your head. And
Mm.
so help us to understand, because there's a whole different way of learning, and you're taking into account where the kid is at before you actually try and give them information.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, so many different things. So the reason they say Maslow before you bloom is when a student or anybody really I mean, in my opinion, and research backs it up, is when somebody's in stress or in trauma, they can't absorb information, they can't retain information. And so it's important that when you have students in your classroom, when they come in, that there's like, have you ask them questions. Have you eaten today? What did you brush your teeth today? Just those basic needs met before you open up the door to, let me teach you something. Kids don't learn from teachers that they don't feel seen and loved by. And I would argue the same is true. Anybody listening right now, think back or comment. I don't know if you can comment on this platform, but think back to a time when you had a teacher or an educator in your world or in your life that made a profound impact. And it could be a profound impact, good or bad. I have teachers from my childhood. Mrs. DeYoung, who was my fourth grade teacher, she had a special snack drawer just for me because I would go to school hungry and tired and dirty. And I remember going up to her every day after lunch around 1:30 or 2, and for whatever reason my energy would dip. I'd walk up, she'd give me a hug and open her drawer and say, take a snack, sweetie. And to this day I remember that, and to this day I remember the trick she taught me in math, the finger trick with learning your nines. Did you learn that one? So I think it's important for educators especially to remember that if your kids in your classroom feel loved and safe and cherished, they're going to open up to you in new ways. And there's a lot of different ways you can help them feel loved. I love using the 1 by 10 strategy here in my classroom. So I do, I basically have a roster of 10 students. I select 10 students for 10 days in a row. And for 1 minute a day, I connect with that student. So I typically just bring my roster out to recess, and I call a little hero over and I say, hey buddy, tell me about your favorite Pokemon, or tell me about something you love. And I just get into their world for 1 minute. It's like a 1 minute little check-in, and then I send them off, and then I call somebody else in. And so that's my 10-minute stretch with 10 different heroes, and I just rotate that. But I think being really deliberate and intentional about connection is really important. And kids can tell when you don't like them. The kids can tell when you don't love them. And so that Maslow before you bloom, you got to meet those physical and emotional, all those social emotional skills, before you even, relationships first before anything else is my motto.
So Elizabeth, how were you able to, because if you said you were homeless for 6 years, you a lot of times came to school hungry. You were saying that, you were hungry and dirty is the thing that you said. I wasn't saying it.
Yeah.
But you were saying that a lot of kids would then turn that and get angry. But you're this beacon of light. You're this joy. You're looking at the 1 to 10 rule, which I've never heard before. That just blew my mind, and it probably blew everyone's mind that's listening. How were you able to turn that corner and not become what you saw and become angry?
I've had so many people ask me that question, and I don't know how to answer it truthfully. I mean, I'll answer it truthfully, but I don't know the answer. I mean, I definitely have always been curious in my life. I've always asked questions. And I remember having moments very young. I honestly think it's because of the example of other people. Like, if I could just summarize it, and I think I look back at my childhood, and I remember people like Miss Tracy, my Girl Scout leader, who pulled me aside and just loved on me. And I think I developed this resilience because I knew what I didn't want for my life. Like, I remember in second grade, my mother struggled with addiction up until about 10 years ago. And so I never had a relationship with her growing up. We have a great relationship now, and that story is incredible in itself. But so as a young person, I was being raised by my single father. We were very poor. And I remember in second grade, my friend Ashley, we were making Mother's Day cards, and I didn't have a mom or a woman really in my life to acknowledge for Mother's Day. And I like told my friend Ashley about it, and she started crying. And she was so sad for me. And I remember thinking in my second-year-old brain, like, huh, I never, because as a kid, it's just like your life is just your normal. You don't really even can identify the traumas, necessarily as a child. And I remember in that moment thinking, when I grow up, I want to be a mommy the right way. And I want to do it the right way. And I want to be like Ashley's mommy. And I want my kids to be able to make Mother's Day cards. And so there were definitely times in my life, like I look back and I just think I'm so thankful for humans who saw me and loved on me. And even like another story was when I was like 13 or 14, and I would randomly once a year on my birthday get a book from somebody, and in the front cover, and I still have the books, in the front cover it said, "You don't know who I am. I pray for you. I think about you. Love, Anonymous." And it was always a book of encouragement or just even learning a life skill, because I really struggled just to learn life skills as a young child. And so I always had this sense that like somebody was thinking of me and praying for me. And so for me, I just, instead of growing furious, I just grew curious. And I've always been, somebody who's asked a lot of questions and looked at people in my life. Unfortunately it was the adults in my life, and thought, I don't want to be anything like that, so I'm going to find people to help me and look at the people who are successful, human beings and successful parents, have good relationships, and I'm going to strive to be like that and lean in and press into those mentorship relationships. So I've had my moments of bitterness. Like I'm going to be honest with you, I've had my moments of working through things. And as an adult and now as a mother myself, I try to always stay introspective. I always try to learn. I'm a huge podcast listener. I read 52 books last year, all personal development.
Oh,
And I just think that that's a way, the more that I learn, the more that I realize like how much I don't know. And so I'm just like a constant like sponge, a student. So I think those are some things that have helped me work through those maybe bitterness or anger, because that's a very like common, that's, I mean, you're human. I mean, sure, you've gone through hard stuff too, and your listeners too have gone through everybody's gone through stuff. And so you just have to figure out how to rise above, and be that phoenix, rise above and learn.
well, we're all happy that you said that you did go through some things, because the knowledge bombs that you just dropped on us, as far as how to teach and how to connect with the kids and things like that. I'm thinking, I mean, is there a line of parents to get into your classroom? Because I know if I lived in your neighborhood, I would be, I mean, I never thought I would try and bribe a teacher, but I'm trying to bribe teachers now. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
or is
Yes.
everyone clamoring to get in? And you pronounce it Miss Coller? Am I correct?
Caller. Yeah.
Okay.
Caller. Yeah.
So
Um,
is everyone
yeah.
clamoring to get in the classroom then in yours?
You're so funny. It wouldn't be because of me. It would be because of the school I teach at. And yes, we do have waiting lists for all of our classes. We
Okay.
do.
What I love about you is you're humble too. You're a superhero. Seriously. Like, I mean, it's amazing to watch and to be able to see, and you have so much fun with it. Let's talk about the flip side of it though, because when a lot of times people think social media, they think, oh, wow, you're going to kill your brain. Our parents said it to us, like, you get too close to the TV, you're going to go blind. No, you won't.
Yeah.
But people talk about like social media, it's going to be the devil, it's going to be all these things, and you're using it for such a positive. Do you run into, even
Yeah.
parents or other teachers that are saying like, you don't need to be doing that?
It's interesting. No, I got hired at the school that I work at and was very transparent about what I do, and I'm like championed and so supported in this place. I genuinely feel like the luckiest, educator alive. Not only because I've got supportive parents and awesome heroes. But the staff that I work with, like, I'm really not like, the things that happen in the other studios, in the other classrooms are way better. Like, I'm just a highlight reel, and, you know, social media social media is a tool, and I try and use it that way to post different things, relatable things, funny things. I try to add value to my following, right? And so I do that a variety of ways, but for the most part, to be honest, the educational community has been very supportive. There are some topics, to be honest, I stay off of just because they are so controversial. I know where I stand on them. I don't need to pick a fight with everybody on social media about them. But for the most part, all of my parents follow me. All of my parents follow me. All of the staff follows me. And there's times I include, like, I texted a mom the other day, hey, I'm making a reel. Would you mind if I used your daughter? And she's like, oh my gosh, that's so fun. Go for it. So I have full support. And obviously there's guidelines, we want to be safe and all of that. But
Of course.
I think there's such a lack, especially in the teacher community and the education, realm. Teachers need support. And the last thing that I want to do is feel so supported in my school and not share the love. And I just feel I'm just such a believer of, like, pay it forward where you can, and it's scary. Like, I remember when I first started, I'm on YouTube, and I started 7 years ago. And I remember I filmed probably for 6 solid months before I posted my first video, because it's terrifying. You're putting yourself out there, and then once I started posting and I started getting feedback, and I can't tell you how many young people are like, I've thought about becoming a teacher, and as I'm watching you and I see the joy and the purpose and the fulfillment that you get from what you do, I want to become a teacher. So I have this, like, whole really neat following of young adults who are kind of coming into teaching, and some have, like, gone into college, and, like, they send me updates. Hey, I'm in my student teaching. And I was talking to one a week ago, and she's like, I'm just finishing my student teaching. Are you hiring at your school? I'm like, this is so cool. You started 4 years ago following me and reached out to me thinking that you wanted to teach. And so I feel so lucky, and I honestly feel very lucky, very lucky. And I take a lot of, like, I know that my platform is large, and I know that my following is large, and I don't take that lightly. So I try to always add value, whether it's through teacher tip or strategy or social emotional strategy or sharing my story. It's relatable or something funny. So that's a really long answer to your question.
That's a good, it's amazing. I mean, being able to hear you again, everyone out there listening, or if you're watching, you're seeing the joy in her. You know that she's working her purpose. Can you kind of give the listeners some scope too? Because I said that, it's right around, you're right around 100,000 on Instagram. Am I correct? What about,
Yeah.
what about YouTube? Break us down the social following, because I want them to understand the gravity of the people, of the person that you are. And I'm not saying that makes you who you are. I'm just saying,
Right.
like, most people, again, they do their job, and that's what it is. You have created a whole different industry and inspired. You're the only teacher I've ever seen do this. And you
Oh,
do
really?
it really, and you do it at such a high level. Like, you do it
Oh my
better
gosh.
than people who are just influencers. Like,
Oh my
that's their
gosh.
full job. But you're influencing kids, you're teaching kids, and you're doing this. Help us with the
Yeah.
gravity of it.
Oh my gosh. And if you knew me in real life, you'd be like, I really genuinely am just like the girl next door. I try to be super down to earth. So, and the following, so I have about 100,000 followers on Instagram. I'm at about 2 million views a month on Pinterest. I have about a 50,000, follower newsletter subscriber. I'm about 50,000 on YouTube, I think, last time I checked. And then I'm on Facebook. I think I'm only at like 13,000 followers on my page or something like that.
Only.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, honestly, if you're an entrepreneur, teacherpreneur, edupreneur, or whatever, add value. And then, just add value. And then if you're really adding value, then people want to, people will listen, and appreciate your following. Appreciate those people. People want to know that you care about them for real. And so just stay humble, add value, hustle hard. I work very hard. I create resources and share and partner with companies and stuff like that. I work hard to, but I always try and keep stay humble, you know, and have that humility and that authenticity. Because for me, when I first started, I always go back to my why. You know, why did I start this? I didn't start this to be Insta famous. I didn't start this to be YouTube famous or work with the biggest companies. I started this because a little boy in Africa was using my Bible lesson on a dirt floor. And I just, as my following grows, the potential for the reach for that type of influence grows. And so I always just try to go back to that. And yeah, I'm like so quirky on Instagram, all the reels. Oh my gosh, sometimes I'm like, I don't know why anybody likes this or follows this, but it's fun. It's fun.
Well, I mean, it's hilarious. It's informative. And I mean, it's super entertaining. I mean, to be able to watch it and you see your personality come through. Did you just pick out that song, or are you a hip hop follower?
Oh my gosh, I love hip hop. I like a variety, but yeah, that song in particular, it just like got the message across. Let me reintroduce myself, you know. So Jay-Z, I love Jay-Z though.
So talk to us
Yep.
too about when you were saying the edupreneur or teacherpreneur. You know, the entrepreneur is a hot word. We were just talking about it earlier. We were actually talking about it earlier today. We had a PR and marketing agency on, and people a lot of times don't realize that there's a difference between making money, like exchanging your time for money, and actually producing or making it up. And right now you're making up a whole industry that is phenomenal. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think my goal is to turn my like just if you can monetize your passion, then it feels like you're not working, you know? And so that's basically what I feel like I do. I feel like I am in the classroom and I look at the students, the heroes, and I say, you need to learn how to read. Like the problem is you don't know how to read. So I'm going to try to create a resource to fix that problem. And then I get to see it in action. And then I'm going to share it with the world. And so I think if you can figure out a way to monetize your hobbies, you're gold, right? And you talked about walking in your purpose. And I think that like I'm reading this book, high performance habits. I think I'm on chapter like 3, which is about clarity. And it's been so life transforming for me because, and you know how it is on social media, you can literally never stop. So you can start on one platform and then you're like, oh wait, but I got to start a website and a blog and a, you know, Facebook page. And I got to go here and here and here. And you can all of a sudden feel like you're so stretched thin. And what niche do I really want to niche down in? And so, you know, I'm in education and I've got a lot of different interests. I'm definitely a creative at heart. I love like everything on the back wall here is stuff that I've created. I love creating. But I think it's really important that you always have your why in the center, you know, center focus. And so I don't know. Does that answer your question? I feel like I'm just like all over the place. I've got teacher brain
No,
today.
no, you're not all over the place. What do you wish that we as parents, like I'm a parent, I'm not a teacher, right?
Yeah.
What do you wish that parents knew about teachers?
Oh gosh, you are a teacher. So don't cut yourself short. Every parent is a teacher, right? There's always like those teachable moments. I'm a parent too. And I was talking to my partner last night and we were talking about the kids and like just we're trying every night right now after dinner just to play board games and do puzzles with the kids and with the intention of it being teachable moments to teach. Like the puzzle last night was to teach problem solving and patience. And so we're going into it, you know, so I just want to encourage you, if you're a parent, you are a teacher and there's lots of teachable moments out there. But I think to be completely honest, and I'm speaking not for myself because I genuinely am very lucky to work at the school that I work at. I'm very supported, but I would say 99% of teachers are undervalued and underpaid. And we work harder. And I've done multiple jobs, right? Even as an entrepreneur, like I owned a photography business. I was a sign language interpreter. Like I was a graphic designer. I did, you know, and like I've had multiple jobs. I've worked for the county. I worked for the state. I've done like, you know, your regular 9 to 5 in the office. And I've never worked as hard as I do as a teacher. And I think a lot of teachers don't have the support that they need from their districts. And it's a shame because there's, they should be the highest paid people. They're, shaping this next generation and pouring into this next generation. And instead, what we have are teachers who are getting burned out because they don't have the breaks or the resources that they need. I've worked at schools where they don't, like, I was not supported, and I would have anxiety attacks in the middle of class, and I really didn't have anybody to call for help. And then as a teacher, teachers are the most giving individuals. They have big hearts and they overgive, and so I would just say, if you're listening to this and you have the opportunity to bless a teacher, like, bless a teacher, because they genuinely, like, I'm saying this for the community. Like, the majority of teachers are undervalued, underpaid, and mind you too, like, this is another thing that sometimes I was thinking about this week. It's like we have like 30 clients, like the students, but then the parents are our real clients. And there's a certain amount of, like, we want to invest and love on and care for and watch the students grow. But then there's this other side where, like, there's almost like customer service that's happening with parents. And when you have 30, however many kids you have in your classroom, so say you have 30 kids in your class, that's 60 parents, mom and dad, if both are mom and mom or dad, and, if everybody's involved, that's a lot of people to keep happy. And there are things that come up with kids that sometimes, like, parents need to just have some grace, and just some understanding that, teachers really, they have moments too. They're not perfect. And I think for me, like, I always just try to keep really open communication with my parents. Like I do, like, right here, I'm an open book, and I try to just run with authenticity. But parents, be just understanding and gracious with all the teachers, especially in light of all that's happening right now, this pandemic. It has been teaching was hard prior to the pandemic. Teaching is even harder now. So just have lots of grace, understanding, all the things.
Give me the top 5 things, actionable things that like, if I was if I was a parent, I'm a parent. What is the top 5 things that I could do that would just make your life so much easier? Not being kind. I mean, I understand those things, but I'm talking about, like, do we bring you apples? Do we, when you said bless a teacher, tell us how, like, tell us 5 ways that Elizabeth would like for the parent to show up. I mean, do we all chip in, the 30 of us, and chip in and buy your car? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, are our kids going to have a better education at that? What is it?
Yeah.
Like, what do we do?
Yeah. I think words, I mean, honestly, like that book, the 5 love languages, words of affirmation or acts of service. Like, I would just try to get an idea of what the teacher, like, how he or she feels loved, and then just love on them that way. I know for me, words of affirmation and acts of service are pretty high on my list. And so I just appreciate when like the other night, so we had an after school, like, lock-in party. We had like a little popcorn and movie party here, and had all the kids, and we were playing games and we're playing hide and go seek in our classroom. And if you can imagine, like, 25 kids, and like there's nowhere to hide, so I'm just like acting like I can't see them. But I was walking back to my car, and my own kids were in the classroom, and a parent drove by, and she just kind of hung her head out the window, and she said, "Thanks for tonight. And also, we just want to make sure you got back to your car okay." And just that level of, like, I'm human too. And, like, that would be something, those acts of service in that way, and just thoughtfulness. Don't buy a teacher another mug. Most teachers, oh my gosh, I have so many tumblers and mugs, like, honestly. And I can, like, if you did a poll, like, I bet most teachers would be like, no more mugs. Yeah, I mean, gifts are wonderful. I think the biggest blessing for me is feeling like I'm in partnership with the parent, with their kid, because it can feel like you're on an island in a silo in your classroom at times. And having a parent who has a growth mindset, and we're able to conflict, what is it called? Problem solve, and come up with solutions for, and not conflict is the wrong word, but if there's a problem with their student, we're able to talk and strategize and partner together. That's like an honesty, supporting the teacher in that way. Because if there's support at home, the teacher feels more supported. So I know that at the end of the day, if I say, hey, we're partners in crime, right? You're my partner, and I'm gonna follow through with the strategies here in the classroom. If you could follow through with the strategies at home, then he or she's getting that same consistency. So that's definitely something. And then just like random notes, like, I appreciate you. You know, I sent one today to one of my coworkers, and I just said, I appreciate you as a human being. Thank you for all you do. Thank you for all the things that you do that are unseen. And I think those kind, like, I talk about that too, like on my platforms a lot, about like everybody's got a love tank, right? And my kids, my children, my students, parents have a love tank. And if you're gonna have conflicts, right? Things come up, but if you're constantly depositing in the parents, or in parent to teacher, those little like nuggets of love, like, hey, I appreciate you, I love you, then when you do have conflict, that person knows that you're for them, and then you're able to, you know, partner together easier, because there's that just, you know, positive assumption. So I don't know if that answers it, but those would be my top things. I know they're like not your typical like buy a mug or buy a gift card, but and then I would also say one last thing, because I think this is important too. Teachers who are in Title I, Title II schools, they don't get a lot of support. Like, they just don't get a lot of support. They're low funded, you know, they're trying to work with children who are coming from, you know, unfortunate situations. A lot of times, I did my student teaching in a Title I school, and I can tell you some stories that would make your skin crawl. And so, love on those teachers too. Don't forget those teachers. So those would be my things.
Oh, I love it. I love this, Elizabeth. And you're like Mother Teresa, because I just asked you for some like gifts that you want to get, and you were like love and hugs and teacher, and not hugs. Don't give hugs to Miss Coller. Don't do that. Don't be going there, parents. But like the notes and stuff like that. Let's go to the superficial Elizabeth. Like, I'm saying, like, I would want an ice cream sandwich. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you bring me an ice cream sandwich at my job, like, I'm good. Like, and it's got to be Carnation. You can't go ghetto on me and get the store-bought brand. But if you bring me a Carnation, like, ice cream sandwich, I am going to perform at the highest level. Like, I've been in the professional beauty industry for 29 years. If my client that was sitting in the chair that I was about to cut their hair, they were going to get the greatest haircut of all time. What would that ice cream sandwich be for Elizabeth?
Oh my gosh. I mean, for me, I'm such a like quality time kind of person. So if somebody were to get me a gift, I would say like buy my family an experience, like a trip to the zoo, tickets to, you know, so then when I'm not with the kids here in the classroom, I can be spending time with my own children and loving on them. Something like that, you know, something like that.
What is the top 3 things that a parent should never do with the teacher? Because, and again, I'm just learning here, because I never thought I'd want to bribe a teacher, but I will bribe a teacher. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've got kids. I need them to get good grades. I want to have some preferential treatment. So I'm saying, like, you know, again, we've owned salons for years, and every one of the teachers has some great hair. You know what I'm saying? Like, and
oh my gosh, I mean, you can never shower a teacher with too much love, I don't think. But I would say
what's the bad things to do then? What is besides the mugs? You already said, and those of you out there listening, don't get any more mugs. Stop it.
No more mugs.
Not even a #1 teacher mug.
Yeah, nope. I have like 10 of those. No more. No more. Okay, so I would say a couple of my biggest pet peeves with parents, and I'm not saying that this is just for my 13 years, right, as in education, is sometimes parents would like to have like parent-teacher conferences at pickup when you're trying to get all the kids out the door, and they're like, can I just check in with you really quick about my, you know, daughter or sons, whatever, and I'm like, let me just say goodbye to the next 17 kids, you know? And so it's just like the worst timing. I would say #1, respect their time. Email them and say, hey, as much as you want to check in at pickup, like, hey, can I schedule a time with you? So like respect their time, don't be disrespectful of their time. Um, Gosh, I don't know. I mean, yeah, the teacher mugs. What else? Another thing that would be like a pet peeve. I think just like, this is a good one. And it kind of ties in with, respecting their time is don't don't like expect a phone call after like 5 o'clock. Like don't call them after 5. Don't ever call their cell phone unless they've like literally given you permission to do so. And as much as they say, oh, it's fine. No, no, love them enough to say like, let's have some boundaries here. And like I said, teachers typically are givers. Like they give. They have a heart for kids. And they're very easily, like you can easily take advantage of us because we are such givers. And most teachers don't have good boundaries. Like this is all like the self-care talk, right? Like you can't pour from an empty cup. Well, I would challenge your everybody to say that you shouldn't be pouring. You should be pouring from the overflow. You shouldn't be emptying your cup at all. You should be, and so teachers sometimes, I think the constant like, talk under our breath is to each other is, are you taking care of yourself? And it's really easy for parents to get off work and just, well, something happened today, unless it's like a dire emergency, respect their time and shoot them an email and set up an appointment and bring them a Starbucks when you come and, like be a kind human being. Know that they're human too. So
I love that you brought up the Starbucks part because that Elizabeth started to come to the forefront. Like I
yeah,
asked before, and you were like, I like words of affirmation. No, guys, she
yeah.
likes Starbucks. So bring
Start.
Starbucks, and your kid's gonna get an A. That's all I heard right there. Help us too, because parents, like my son is 10 years old, right? I would like to think I have some sort of intellect, which I get challenged every day with the 10-year-old. And he sits down to do his homework and he's like, Dad, I need some help. And I'm like, you sure do. But I ain't the one. And I want to speak for parents. Okay. But you need to help me to understand this. Common Core math. Like
Ugh.
I want to shake somebody, and
Uh-huh.
I'm a nice guy. I'm a God-fearing guy. I'm a Jesus-loving guy. But I tell you, I want to lose my religion when this stuff happens.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, no, 2 + 2 is 4, not around the block, down the street with the train, and then get a hug, and then come back, and it's 3, but then add 1 more, and it's 4. Help
Right.
parents here. And parents are going to
Yeah.
love me for this, for me
Oh
asking
my
this.
gosh. Okay, that is kind of a buzz topic, right? I I always just try to ask myself as I'm teaching my students, is this helping them become problem solvers and critical thinkers? And if the answer to that question is yes, then we're learning some good things. If this is another, Common Core, I'm going to spin this in a way because Common Core does get a bad rap, absolutely. And I know that it's confusing and it doesn't make sense. And can we go back to the old ways? And I personally don't love it either. Like but I do think that in everything, I think people, and this is just speaking from my own experience, in everything we do, the question should always be, okay, what lesson can I learn? Does this make sense? No, this is like torture, right? Why are we learning this way? This is not going to apply to my life. But what lesson can I learn in this? And then sign all the petitions to get rid of Common Core. you know, sign them all. So I just feel like if some of the biggest lessons, I'll just share this. Some of the biggest lessons that I learned as a child was when I was in 4th grade and my dad looked at me and said, "We don't have money for clothes." And I had to figure out how to get money for clothes. And there were this pair of shorts that had these stripes on the sides of them and this like little drawstring tie at the Fashion Bug in this little town, podunk town called Rensselaer, Indiana. And I remember looking at my dad thinking, Dad, how am I going to get money? How are we going to buy clothes? And he said, well, you're going to have to go earn it. So I hopped on my bike. I got a black trash bag and I collected cans for an entire week. And I kept checking in with the Fashion Bug, like, don't get rid of my shorts. I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. And I ended up buying, they were $20. I ended up buying those shorts. I learned through that situation first of all, I wasn't handed anything because there was nothing to be my dad genuinely didn't have money. I learned how to work hard. I learned how to build resilience, and it was summer. I mean, I was like, $20 worth of cans, 15 years ago, it was like 10 trash bags. It was like legit, like a week's worth of collecting. But when I wore those shorts to school that first day, I felt like $1,000,000, and I knew the story, and I knew the hard work and the sweat, right? And so I just want to encourage and challenge this. Common Core sucks. Okay, so there's a lot of things about education that is broken, and I'm going to be really honest with you. As a teacher, it breaks my heart, not only for educators but more so for the students, that there's things about school and education that are just wrong and broken. Students need to be excited about what they're learning about. There's engagement that happens. And if Common Core, if they're not understanding, why are we doing this, right? But I just want to challenge you and anybody listening to just always remember, always ask yourself in those moments with your kids too, and you can say, like I say to my kids, I don't think that this is valuable. I don't see the value in this other than we're learning patience. We're learning how to push through when we don't feel like it. And those are the lessons that I would focus on.
So I think the age old question for me, it's not an age old question. I like to think just because I ask it, it's age old. But what I find with generations, especially now, is when I grew up, we grew up and we didn't have a ton. And I remember thinking in my head, I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to give my kid every single thing that I never was able to have. But I think a lot of times the thing that we forget is the thing that made us into the people that we are was all the struggle that happened. Now, how is it, and help me on this, because like with you, and I love that you say this, and I keep hearing it. Every time you talk about one of your students, you call him a hero. I love it. You didn't even say it. Like you weren't like, I call him a hero. No, you just kept calling him that. And everyone who's listening, go back. I was about to say rewind, but we don't rewind today. And listen to it. And every time Elizabeth talked about her students, she talked about it as a hero. My question to you is you, this amazing being that is, transforming education, came from your dad not being able to buy you the shorts, and you have to go out and do all the stuff. And then we're going in and we're loving on these kids so much. And this would be an argument from some people. You're loving on them so much that now they're going to be in a place where they don't have that grit, that fire, that desire inside. What would you say to that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I would say don't remove the obstacles. Don't remove the obstacles from your kids' lives. Your kids need hard things. There's growth in tension. And if you're not feeling challenged and your kids are not feeling challenged, they're not going to grow. They're not going to learn the things. One of the things that I always ask the parents as students are coming into my classroom, literally I sit down and have an interview and I look at the parent and I ask, when is the last time you let your kid fail and step back? When did you, and how was that for you? What did you do? What was your response? And what was their response? I think, we talked about social media earlier, and social media is a tool, but it's also a drug. And we have to be very careful as parents to not put that drug in the hands of our kids. I try to be super intentional and deliberate with my family. And I mean, like we have a morning routine. My partner and I have a morning routine that's like set in stone. We get up this morning. I'll just share. We get up, we cold plunge the first thing in the morning, and it's like the most painful, awful thing in the world. And then we sit and have coffee and talk, and we go through our gratitudes for the day, and we go through our goals and basically we set our intentions for the day. And I think parents miss it when they think that they need to provide their kid with everything that they never had. And like you said, I am who I am today because of what I went through. I am who I am, and I appreciate more because of what I went through. And I know the value of hard work. And so you can't transfer what you've learned necessarily, there's like an empathetic disconnect that kids, they just don't understand. Like, even when I talk to my kids about my time living in a teepee, being homeless with my father, like, I remember pulling back the sleeping bag, in our teepee, and there was a mouse that had her little babies in my sleeping bag, and we brushed them aside, and I crawled in and went to bed for the night. I remember the time that we went to the junkyard and got our bathtub and our toilet bowl and brought it back to the teepee. And, and I tell these stories to my kids. I remember sitting in the bathtub after we had drilled the red pitcher pump. We'd literally hand drilled this red pitcher pump, those old fashioned pumped water, heated it up over the fire, poured it in this bathtub basin that we had just got from a junkyard. And I remember sitting there still for just about a minute and let the water settle. And there was this film of oil from the junkyard cars that were on this junkyard property we were basically squatting on. And I remember as a kid thinking, like, I'm not even getting cleaned in this bath water, and I tell these stories to my kids, and there's like, I can tell it as passionately as I'm telling you now, but there's still a disconnect. And just because I have a phenomenal story, or, some crazy story that nobody would have experienced, or, whatever, it's unique, they still don't quite get it until they're able to experience the tension. And I think stories are great. And I think, like, having people on like me who have a unique story, but pain is still pain. People go through things all the time. And just because I grew up in a teepee, you may have grown up in a perfect home, the Partridge Family, but it doesn't mean or negate the pain and things that you've gone through. And so I would just encourage anybody listening, parent, teacher, student, whoever, how are you challenging yourself? You should be uncomfortable. There should be a level of being uncomfortable in your life, whether it's you're continuing to grow professionally, so you're taking courses and classes, or, I was listening to this podcast recently, and it was interesting because the guy was like, and I don't know if can I swear on here?
Of course
Is that
you
okay?
can.
Okay. So the guy was talking about this kind of topic about, like, don't remove the obstacles. And he's like, yeah, people should be saying, have a shitty day. I hope you have a shitty day, because, like, you should want to, that's the growth intention is where people miss it. They try to make their life so comfortable, or their kids' life so comfortable, and you're not going to grow. You're not going to grow. So I don't know. That's what I would say.
What what would you say too? Because I mean, you've obviously found your purpose now, but it's not like you came out the oil ridden bathtub in the junkyard and you were like, you raised up and you were like, I found my purpose. And then you just went along and read 52 books and, impacted all these lives, things like that. Can you take us through was there a turning point for you where you started to say, like, no, I want to move towards my purpose?
It's a process. It's like such a I feel like I'm still in a process, I would say when I moved out of my dad's house when I was 16, and I remember I had one of these like aha moments. I was literally standing in a cornfield across the street from our home, and I was looking up at the stars, and I just had one of these moments of like, what is going to happen here? And this I'm a believer, and I have a Christian faith, and this verse, trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he'll direct your path. And I remember in that moment just thinking, like, that verse, basically what it says is, you might not know what your life is going to end up like. You might not know where you're headed, but turn your eyes and just focus. And maybe it's, the Lord for you. Maybe it's higher power. Maybe it's, podcasts or whatever it is. And just don't lose sight. Don't get distracted. And so for me, it's just been a continual journey of self-development and just leaning in. And like I said earlier, just remaining curious. Ask the questions. Don't go in places acting like you know everything, because you don't. Ask people questions. Be curious. I'm talking a lot about my story, but I would say, to be honest, my typical approach in conversation really models that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's all about, like, what you're doing today. Ask people questions. Hear their stories. Get curious about how to continue to grow and develop. So
How do you,
I don't know if that answered it.
absolutely. Elizabeth, how do you reconcile? Because you said that you're a believer. How do you reconcile when everything goes wrong, like everything? And because there's listeners out there, and I'm sure that you've been through this where, say pandemic wise, my wife and I, every single business that we had, we were diversified, right? And everyone told us, don't put all your eggs in one basket and do all the stuff. Every egg that we put in any basket got smashed. Every one of them. I was diversified, but every one of them, I was like, and at that time I was like, God, like you told me to diversify. How do you reconcile when everything goes wrong? And how do you reconcile that with with your belief when you were saying that you are a believer, that you have God there and to trust him? Talk to us about some specifics of you when you were at that point where there's no proof to trust him at that point. And how did you get through it?
Yeah. So I'm going to be really vulnerable and authentic with you. So the last few years have been the hardest of our lives. And I say ours because of my boys. I went through a divorce in 2019. I was married to a pastor for over a decade, and marriage just fell apart for various reasons. And right in the middle of the pandemic, it was like right in the beginning of the pandemic. And all of a sudden, everything that I knew about family and community was shattered. Literally within like a month, everything was gone. And I've done, and I'm not perfect. Like, I don't have my shit together. Like, I love Jesus, but I swear a little, and social media is such a highlight reel, guys. Oh my goodness. But I do feel like I do one thing well, and that's to lean in and grow and be curious, like when everything happened in 2018, 2019, I fell apart. But instead of leaning in, from my trauma, instead of leaning into whatever, drugs, sex, and rock and roll, I leaned into just figuring out how to grow and change from it, and I didn't make perfect decisions all the time, but I did the reason I read 52 books last year was because I was so determined to be a better human being because of everything that happened. And I feel like that's what people should do, is when the shit hits the fan, take a deep breath, and just step back. It took, oh my gosh, Edison 999 times before he figured out how to, make a light bulb. And you're going to fail. And like nobody, like you're not born into a life that says it's going to be easy. You're not going to have an easy life. Like things are going to pop up. And if I've learned anything over the last few years, especially when you have children and you're like a mother and you have to protect your children and you go through things that are hard and challenging, is that, sometimes you have to like hands open, like, okay, I'm just going to do the next best right thing that I know. And that's all I can do. And I'll tell you, like, I definitely feel more free and more settled in this process as I lean into health. I think too, like self-care is very important. Taking care of your mental and physical health is very important. But look back in history. There's so many, there are fewer people who like, became overnight millionaires than there are people who are millionaires that took a long time and took a process and processes of failures and falling down and getting back up. Brene Brown, author and researcher. Have you heard of her? Okay. So she's got the best TED Talk ever on authenticity. And she's written so many books, Rising Strong and Dare to Lead. And I've read them all, and in Rising Strong, she talks about when you get into the ring and when you fall and you fail, because it's going to happen. Maybe you fell because you were tripped, or maybe you fell because you failed and you messed up. Get up and rise strong. It's like the phoenix, and so I actually got that tattooed on my arm, fail forward and rise, because I feel like you're going to fail. It's that whole like growth mindset versus fixed mindset. When you do fail, it's not a matter of, if, it's a matter of when. How do you respond to that adversity, and how do you get back up and rise strong?
I think one of the things that I admire about you, and even in hearing you today, is you have systems and processes, and people have been saying processes. Is it from a teacher standpoint? Am I saying it wrong? Because
I teach kindergarten.
okay,
I don't know.
when someone says that, I just think they're weird. They say processes, and I'm like, it's processes, but
Processes.
it's
I would say
process.
processes.
I had someone say processes the other day, and I just looked at him, and I didn't want to call him out because we're in the middle of a conversation, you know. And I don't want. I mean, I barely graduated from high school, but I was like, at least I know that part. But maybe
Yeah.
I'm wrong.
That's
But
fine. And it might be one of those words you can say both. I don't know.
I maybe we'll have a whole podcast about that. But the reason why I'm saying it is because I think a lot of times people get so wrapped up in the process, and they get so wrapped up in the system that they think, and the system becomes their religion. Does this make sense? And you know, this was a big thing for me. It's probably, I would say, probably 20 years ago. God gave me something. He just said that, you know, religion was the same as, you know, a guy. He had a prayer, and he went down to the river, and he happened to be wearing a red suit that day because that's all he had. So he went down to the river, he prayed, turned around, came back home, and the prayer got answered. All the people were like, "Wow, you know, the prayer got answered." And he was like, "Yeah, you need to wear a red suit, go down to the river, and then do your prayer." And then a guy didn't have a red suit. He couldn't afford one, so he only had a green one. He went down. He was thirsty when he got down to the river. He drank the glass of water, turned around 2 times, then went back, but he was wearing a green suit, and when he got back, his prayer got answered. He told the town, that guy's wrong. I'm right. Wear a green suit, turn around 2 times, drink a glass of water, and then your prayers will be answered. And what God was letting me to know is the only reason why the prayer got answered is because you asked me, not because the green suit, the red suit, the drinking, the turn around. So when you're going through and you're doing what you're doing, and this is what I admire about you and in hearing your story, is you have not relied on the process or the system, and that became your religion. You continued to grow. How have you been able to do that? Because honestly, we want to be behind the curtain here.
Yeah. Okay. So as you were sharing the quote, we do not determine our destiny, we make choices. And those choices determine our destiny popped into my head. And I heard that when I was 15 or 16. And it's kind of become like a life motto. And for me, I think it's just, you just make the next right choice, even if you don't feel like it. And listen, I'm not perfect. I don't always do the workouts, and I don't always read the books. And I sometimes veg out on, you know, I get stuck in the scroll hole on Instagram. Like, it happens, you know. But every day is a new day, and the only person you should be in competition with is the person you were yesterday. And you just show up every day, have a growth mindset, lean into curiosity, ask questions, and don't think that just because you're not where you want to be, it doesn't mean, or that you're a failure. Don't let that victim mentality ruin your future. So just continue to make the next best right choice. And you know, I too, like, you know, being a teacher, I'm like a huge progress monitor, like, geek. I would say, like, set your intentions and set your goals. So maybe that looks like you set yearly goals and then break them down quarterly and then break them down monthly. And maybe it's a goal of, like, you know, reading 2 pages a day, or, you know, getting into a mastermind group, or taking a course, or just what are you doing that's challenging yourself? Also, you're the sum of the closest 5 people that you know are in close relationship with. I mean, gosh, I'm literally pulling everybody else's podcast, like, nuggets and I'm just, like, pulling them in. But these are all things that I feel like are so important. So your time is valuable, and who are you spending it with? Are you spending it with people that you want to be like? I think it's important too that you have 3 different types of relationships. I think you need to have relationships of people that you look up to. You need to have peer relationships, and then you need to have mentoree relationships, people that you invest in. And that keeps you humble. So, like, every Saturday we go and we feed the homeless. Every single Saturday I bring my kids. I also am involved in serving in our local community. And that those are the types of mentoree relationships where I sit and I just, like, talk to people they're struggling in life. They're just in a season of life of struggle. Their journey is just a struggle right now. I also have peer, relationships, and my friends are good people, and I'm very particular about the quality of people. And that might sound stuck up, but I'm telling you, you only have so much time in this world. Everybody has an expiration date. So be picky about the quality of people you let into your circle. And then also, look up who do you want to be like, and reach out to those people. I can't tell you how many times I've had I can't tell you how many times I've been at conferences. True story. I've been at conferences and watched a speaker on the platform my friend Julie Adams. I stalked her on Facebook and said, "Hey, I'm sitting in the crowd watching you right now. I want to take you to coffee. I've got 3 questions, 30 minutes of your time. I just think you're a phenomenal human being." And that 30-minute conversation turned into a 2-hour conversation, turned into a mentorship, and it's just, grown. And there's been a lot of people like that where I've just, and it's all about being curious. People can sense authenticity and curiosity. Don't go into things, conversations with thinking that you know something, just go in curious. Go in thinking, what do I not know? What do I not know? What questions can I ask?
So Elizabeth, I mean, probably one of the most intentional people I've ever got a chance to be able to spend any time with. What do you do? Like, what are the activities that you do that mean nothing, that get you nothing, that don't get you closer to your goals? Like for me, I like to bowl. Now, maybe it gets me closer to my goal because I beat the people that I go with, unless I'm bowling with my buddy Dave, who he knows he'll whoop me. But I'm saying like and I like to ride my bike. And when I'm riding my bike, I
Yeah.
mean, there's thought processes that happen. What are the things that you do that honestly, that are just silly, that are just for you
Yeah.
and that you shut
Yeah.
down on? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely I call it like active meditation, where I'll go on walks and I just listen to music, or listen, like for me, I'm such a nature buff, go on a hike. Um, and that really is just me being out in nature. I love art. So I'm kind of like an artsy fartsy. I have my iPad and my app Procreate, and sometimes I just literally sit and doodle. Um, and journaling is another thing. Gosh, I don't know. I honestly don't have a lot of I play guitar and sing. I was looking at some videos earlier today. So I really enjoy music, and so I'm a shower singer and used to lead worship at the church and stuff like that. So I'll do that kind of stuff. And then just for me, just being silly and playing with my kids. That's like my favorite thing. I honestly probably spend a lot of my extra minutes in the day just being silly and goofy. Last night I tucked my 10-year-old in bed, and he looked at me and he kind of pulled me, and he's like, "Mom, I got to have a conversation with you." And so I'm thinking, I'm like, awesome teachable moment, and I'm like all ready. I kind of adjusted myself on the bed. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a deep conversation. And he starts talking about Diary of a Wimpy Kid and Captain Underpants, and literally thought it was like the cutest story ever, and he was just cracking up. And so I just rolled with it. I'm like, no way he did that. And he's telling me this story about a shark and a walrus and all this stuff. And so that brings a lot of just lightens the load. Also, honestly, I have a lot of fun with my students. There's times I'll make silly little faces, or as we're talking, or if it's a really serious moment, because we're all about accountability in our classroom, right? So we actually create a studio contract here in the classroom. We come up with our rules together, and if you break a contract rule, we can call you out on it. And so there's times when things feel more serious, and then other times, and there's times I'll did you distract your friend? And then I'll throw a silly face, and then it'll automatically just lighten the load. And so just enjoying life. And I think that for me, I genuinely enjoy what I do. I love connecting with students. I love connecting with, awesome people just like you, who ask all the questions and are curious. I love having real conversations. And so anything that's outdoorsy, creative, a creative art, and then just hanging with my people. Those are my my go-tos.
Elizabeth, what's next for you?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. What is next for me? I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you what some of my goals are. I am currently working, I'm planning on coming back and teaching next year. I'll be here full time. I sell resources on Teachers Pay Teachers. I feel like I've got 22 plates in the air right now. One thing that I would love to grow in, just an opportunity, and I do have a few opportunities this year, is just I would love to share my story, like public speaking. I've been able to do it a couple times, and it's been really neat. It's been just really powerful. And I shared it. I was invited to China last year, and I've spoken nationally in Vegas to a few hundred educators there. Of course, we were in ministry for years, so I've spoken at youth camps and at church services and things like that. But if I could do one thing additionally than what I'm already doing, it would be to like travel a little bit more and share my story, even with entrepreneurship, and just encouraging entrepreneurs um, and just the story of you, it doesn't matter where you come from, there's you can grow a 6-figure business online, and you can, use turn your tests into your testimony kind of story, so.
Well, I think it's already there, and it's incredible to be able to see. I'm sure that people out there, if you're listening, you have a company, you have if you run a convention, which we know that a lot of our audience do, who your keynote speaker should be. That, you should have Elizabeth, and it's incredible to be able to see that, and getting a chance to be around some of the people that I have, and as fortunate as I am to be around them, it's incredible because all the things that you're talking about, I mean, Elizabeth, well, you already know this. I mean, that's already a spent check. It's already written, done, and it's going to happen. And I want to encourage you in those things. And I'm blown away. Like, I've been blown away because I've got to study you from afar. But I was looking so forward. I remember when you responded, back the other day, and it was quick. Like I've sent out, but I have to tell you, I did send a message to your butt, probably 6 months ago, and you didn't hit me back.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, girl, you need to check that. It was right next to the one that you responded to. You know what I'm saying? So I know you're big time. You know what I mean?
Oh,
getting all those 2 million views a month and all that stuff. But I'm saying, like, it's incredible because, again, studying and researching who you are and then getting a chance to meet the person, by far, it's 100 times better to be able to meet you in person. And, my hat's off to you. So,
thank you.
Elizabeth, I started the podcast because of my kids, Maddox, who's 10 years old, and McKenna, who's 13. And the reason why is because I wanted to take iconic people like yourself, and I wanted to show the world, and I want to show my kids that iconic people like yourself are not superheroes, that you're a regular person, and that you have a great attitude and phenomenal work ethic. Maddox is 10 years old. He marches the beat of his own drum. This kid, I tell the story about him. Like, he woke up one day and he jumps up and he's like, I did it. And I said, what? What'd you do, son? Like, because he just woke up. And he said, I woke up. And
Delight.
And that's that's his spirit. My daughter's spirit. She's the biggest heart, a lover. She's got a sarcastic little personality. She's incredible, and she's so sensitive to energy around her. So, what advice, Elizabeth, would you give to Maddox and McKenna? And if you could use both their names, it would be amazing.
Oh, Maddox and McKenna. Well, it sounds like Maddox and McKenna, your dad knows you very well. McKenna, it sounds like you're an empath. And Maddox, you sound like an enthusiastic young man. And I would say lean into the adults in your life who champion you, and just continue to ask questions and be curious. Always be a student, and always, from a teacher who was a student, as a 10 or a 13-year-old, just ask all the questions, learn all that you can, continue to be a sponge, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We all need help. We're all on a journey. Your dad's on a journey, and you guys are on a journey. Dad's just a little further ahead than you. And so lean into him and lean into others who are in your life.
Well,
that would be my advice.
Elizabeth, you have been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, it's been incredible. I think for the listeners now, if you're watching or if you're listening, the best thing that you could do, and you guys all know that I don't have an ask except check out the sponsors, click the links, do the things that you know you need to do anyway, but you need to share this. You need to share this.
Yeah.
The parents need to know that we don't need to get the teachers any mugs anymore. The parents need to know that it is not parent-teacher conference at the end of the day when they're picking up their kid. But we also need to know that there's a person out there championing us all and saying that Common Core math might not be the answer.
That's right.
But I invite you to share this. I just think, Elizabeth, it is absolutely my pleasure. I'm going to ask you in front of everyone, because this is what I used to do to all my parents. I used to ask them in front of the other parents if hey, can Joey spend the night? But I would ask in front of both parents because my parents wouldn't want to be embarrassed and be the bad parents. So I'm going to ask you in front of all these people. I want you on the show again. I want you on multiple times. I want you to be able to come and be able to continue to share your story, because I know it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. No, I think what you're doing, honestly, I feel, people love talking about themselves, and you do a really good job at asking questions and pulling out stuff. And anytime that I'm able to share my story in a way that inspires somebody else to keep doing or find their purpose or get clarity on their vision, I'm all for it. And I think you did a great job today, by the way, just giving you some affirmation. And you're a great podcast host, and I really appreciate the opportunity to share on your platform what my mission is. And I'm humbled by it. So thank you.
Well, you honestly, you have exceeded any expectation that way. The sad thing is there's going to be people moving to Sacramento to try and get into your classroom. I hear it and I heard it. I'm a sports guy, so when I hear a coach or a player and they ask "Oh, are you going to be a Kansas City Chief for the rest of your life?" And they're like, "Yes, I love this season and I'm going through." I see. And when you talk about Brene Brown, when you talk about these people, when you talk about the Mel Robbins, Elizabeth Coller is going to be in that spot. And there's going to be, there's going to be a day. There's going to be a day where you ain't going to be able to be you ain't going to be able to put your kid in school with Miss Coller. So you better move to Sacramento. If you're listening, move to Sacramento, get your kid in this class, make him a hero, because I don't believe that's going to be happening for too long. So,
and I'm going to be like, it all started on Kelly's show.
It started way before. You are
the thing that launched me. You're so funny.
You are incredible. And I'm going to ask you to stay on here for a second, but I want to tell you, thank you so much. You're awesome. Yes. And I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. You're going to fall in love with my wife. For sure. When you meet my wife, I mean, you're going to absolutely love her. You're going to forget about me because she's so cool. But I want to thank you again. You're awesome, amazing. Yeah. And you are officially off the hot seat.